Amid another quiet week for the San Francisco Giants, I think it's worth asking the question: is Farhan Zaidi capable of changing his philosophy? Welcome into another edition of the Kerry Crowley Show, talking all things Giants baseball. And today, I want to get into the Giants front office philosophy, how it sets up the 2024 season, and what it means for the future of this organization. So let's start from the top. Obviously, a very disappointing 2022 season coming off of a 107 win 2021. We know the Giants weren't aggressive enough in free agency. We know that they did not do enough to compensate for the loss of Buster Posey to retirement. And so after 2022, the Giants make a few changes headed into 2023, but ultimately they decide internally that they think that they will bounce back. They don't need significant external additions. Yes, they add Michael Conforto. Yes, they add Mitch Haniger, make a few other tweaks, but it was clear that they wanted to play at the very top of the free agent market with Carlos Correa. We all saw how that ended up. And so the Giants had to pivot, and they pivoted to the five players that they ended up signing in Haniger and Conforto, Ross Stripling, Sean Manaea, Taylor Rogers, all players who, had had solid, if unspectacular, major league careers to that point, but were probably out of their prime, probably not able to produce at the level that they once had in their major league careers. And we saw that over the course of the 2023 season. So it ends in disappointment yet again for the San Francisco Giants. And it ends with a fan base calling for widespread change. I think a lot of people, even since the outset of the Farhan Zaidi era back in November 2018, have been relatively frustrated with the ethos, with the philosophy of the Giants organization, and the way that the front office conducts player transactions. And there's a lot of people who defend the idea that you scale the bottom of the roster, you add to the floor of the roster, and ultimately you then increase the ceiling, which it feels to me like the Giants have tried to do, albeit unsuccessfully over the last few years. And there's a loud segment of the fan base that believes that what Farhan Zaidi has done is antithetical to the way that the Giants should operate, that they are not as aggressive as they should be with big ticket free agents, that they don't do enough to appeal to the average fan, that the Giants aren't giving fans reason to believe in the capabilities of this ball club, and that the widespread disengagement we've seen from the fan base over the last few years is the byproduct of the front office's decision making, the hire of Gabe Kapler, the decision to go toward a new era of baseball, embracing some of the modern things that we've seen, that were pioneered by the Tampa Bay Rays, Chicago Cubs. We've seen the Giants move in that direction. Quite honestly, we've seen all 30 major league teams move in that direction. But when you go from Bruce Bochy to Gabe Kapler, it's hard to find a more stark difference in the way that a franchise could operate. And so there was no, easing into this new era for the San Francisco Giants from the outset of the 2020 season. It was, we're going from one end of the spectrum to a completely opposite end of the spectrum. And that's kind of how Farhan Zaidi has operated in the front office. And it's why after the 2023 season, when he said that missing the playoffs in back-to-back years was unacceptable for the San Francisco Giants, and that he replaced Gabe Kapler with Bob Melvin, an old school manager, a veteran manager who'd had success throughout his career with the Oakland A's, had a little bit of success, of course, before this last season with the San Diego Padres, that I thought, okay, Farhan is staying in San Francisco. He was given this new 3-year contract, but I believe that it was contingent on Farhan changing his philosophy, on evolving and adapting and making sure that he would not repeat the mistakes of the past, and making sure that the 2024 Giants roster could appeal to this fan base, that the Giants would be more aggressive in free agency, that they would make a few blockbuster trades, that they would do everything within their power to ensure that they could build a contender for 2024, and not just a contender that could, compete near the top of the National League West with the Dodgers, because who knows how realistic that would have been, regardless of whether the Dodgers signed Ohtani and Yamamoto and traded for Tyler Glasnow and now have signed Teoscar Hernandez. Regardless of all of that, the Dodgers are an organization that routinely win 100 games. I'm talking about competing within the rest of the National League, being able to win 90 games, not just raising the floor of the roster by getting 20, 21, 22, those spots for the roster better than they had been in previous years, but raising the ceiling of the roster, giving Logan Webb another ace in the rotation, finding a middle of the order bat that the Giants have desperately needed for the last several years. And I really did believe that the hire of Bob Melvin was the first step toward the Giants evolving and adapting and making sure that they wouldn't be caught in their ways. They wouldn't be too stubborn. And here we are. It's January 11th, and the Giants have signed Jung Hoo Lee. They have traded for Robbie Ray, who's coming off Tommy John surgery, and they've signed a backup catcher in Tom Murphy. And I think fans are left wondering, what is the direction of this franchise? Are the Giants really serious about changing their ways? And are the Giants legitimately serious about contending for a playoff spot in 2024? Because you look at this roster, I think those are all completely fair questions of the San Francisco Giants right now. You look at this roster, you look at the moves the Giants have made in free agency, and you look at their general approach to free agency in the trade market, and I don't see a team. I don't see a front office led by a president of baseball operations that is doing everything in its power to contend and compete and really to re-engage fans, because that to me is one of the most important elements of running a baseball franchise. It's not just, can this team win 90 to 95 games and get into the playoffs? It's, is this team fun to watch? Is this team going to be a draw at the ballpark? Are you going to fill seats at Oracle Park on a nightly basis? Well, I'm of the belief that Jung Hoo Lee will be a player who fans will want to buy the jersey of eventually, and is someone who can be an anchor for this club. And I am, one of the more optimistic people about his ability to contribute in San Francisco. I do think it's fair to wonder, are the Giants going to bring back fans next year? Are they going to be able to re-engage a segment of the fan base that has become dispassionate about this team, and for good reason, over the last 2 years? Because let's be honest, I am a blend of old school and new school. I obviously think that what the Giants did under Bruce Bochy was phenomenal. And I also believe that, when Bruce Bochy decided to retire, and yes, I was there at the moment that he retired, he did not intend at that time to come back into Major League Baseball. He was ready to go spend time with his grandkids. I was of the belief that the Giants did need to get more modern, that they did need to incorporate more analytics, that they did need to catch up with the rest of Major League Baseball. But I think that the way that they've done it has been too stark for me. I think there's been too many openers, too many platoons, too many days on which fans show up to the ballpark not knowing the 9 players who could be in the starting lineup that day, and not knowing whether 5 or 6 of them will be subbed out for pinch hitters by the 5th inning because the other team went from a right-hander to a left-hander. I think that too many fans have showed up to a game thinking that, okay, we might see a starting pitcher today. No, we're going to see John Brebbia throw the first inning, or Ryan Walker throw the first 2 innings. And no disrespect to those relievers. John Brebbia did a great job in his role as an opener for the Giants. Ryan Walker is an anchor for this bullpen moving forward. I think he's got an incredibly bright future in San Francisco. He's someone you want to have on the team. But let's be real. Fans want to see Ryan Walker pitching in the 6th and 7th inning. They don't want to see this man opening a ball game for this team, only for a guy who should potentially be the starter to go 3 to 4 innings, to struggle through those innings, the Giants to be down 5-1 because, the other team hit a home run and the Giants can't at that time. I think it's just been too much of an emphasis on trying to be too smart at times. And the Giants may be overcorrected in their desire to incorporate analytics and to get up to speed with the rest of Major League Baseball. And I think that they were too far on the spectrum of trying to get cute, of trying to play matchups, of trying to play numbers, and relying on analytics to guide their decisions. And so I was hopeful that with the hire of Bob Melvin, the Giants would correct some of that, because this is someone who successfully incorporated analytics and some of the elements of modern baseball into his managerial style with the Oakland Athletics. And we saw it with the San Diego Padres. This is someone who can blend both the traditions of Major League Baseball that Giants fans, especially the older ones, have come to know and love, and some of the newer modern ways that you need to run a baseball team that, let's just be honest, are critical to success. You look at Bruce Bochy in Texas with the Rangers, and I'll tell you, this year, he wasn't relying completely on his gut to win a World Series. There were decisions that were influenced by analytics, and he would be one of the first people to tell you that. Yes, he probably relies on his gut more than most major league managers. Dusty Baker, probably the same. But I also think that there's a healthy appreciation from people who've been in the game like Bochy, like Melvin, like Baker for a long time about the evolution of the game and where you need to get to set your players up for success. So I say all of this because I think the Giants took a good first step in hiring Bob Melvin. And I think that they took a major step forward in acquiring Jung Hoo Lee to play center field and bat leadoff. But since that time, I don't think we've seen a hungry front office. I don't think we've seen an aggressive front office. I don't think we've seen a Giants organization that is desperate to make the playoffs, that is desperate to get fans back at Oracle Park. And that's what I wanted to see this offseason. And there's still plenty of time. As I said the other night, my last YouTube video, the Giants could make me look like a fool within hours of this video publishing. They could sign Blake Snell, Matt Chapman, trade for Corbin Burns, and this video would age horribly. And I'm okay with that because for Giants fans, it would mean that this organization is taking a definitive step in the direction of moving forward and building a contender. But right now, we've seen an organization that to me feels tentative, that to me is worried about making mistakes. And Farhan Zaidi, to me, feels like an executive who was just given a 3-year extension who thinks that he'll be in San Francisco for the next 5, 6, 7 years. And that is not the way I think a front office executive in Major League Baseball who makes millions of dollars should run an organization. I think you should be looking at each season like it could be your last. I think you should be looking at each time you miss the playoffs as a widespread failure for the organization and looking at how you can quickly and swiftly correct that so that fans don't have to suffer through that again. Because since he took over, 2019 season, Giants missed the playoffs. 2020, they missed the playoffs. 2021, they won 107. It was tremendous, but they didn't build off of that. In fact, the next 2 seasons, they missed the playoffs. It's pretty hard to go from 107 wins to missing the playoffs in back-to-back seasons, and the Giants just did that. And this roster right now, I've said, the Giants can make me look like a fool really quickly. This doesn't look like a playoff team to me. I don't know that the Giants are willing to sign a player with a qualifying offer attached to him because they would lose a draft pick. Like Blake Snell, Matt Chapman, I think that they'll probably end up with Chapman. But again, I would have thought that deal would have been done by now. I would have thought that the Giants would have made that move. And the fact that they haven't says to me that, they're worried about losing the draft pick to sign a veteran free agent or uncomfortable being aggressive and potentially having to overpay someone who, would be a net positive in 2024 for the San Francisco Giants, in my opinion. I think that this is an organization that right now needs to take bold action to address the roster shortcomings. Said in a previous video, where is this team getting innings right now? Your number 2 is Ross Stripling. Behind Logan Webb, it is Ross Stripling and a bunch of guys who don't have much major league experience. That's a big issue. They needed like a Shota Imanaga, not because of the potential he possessed, but because Imanaga can throw innings for you. He's going to make 25, 26 starts a season. He's going to cover 150 to 160 innings. The Giants don't have pitchers like that right now, and I worry about this rotation falling apart. I worry about them exposing some of these young prospects who may not be ready for a full season of Major League Baseball, throughout the months of July, August, September. And I worry if they don't acquire a veteran pitcher like a Marcus Stroman, what will happen to these young arms? This lineup that was putrid to watch during the second half of the 2023 season, has it gotten significantly better this offseason? Jung Hoo Lee solidifies the top of the order, but he's still got question marks about his game. I'm optimistic, but I'm the first to admit it may not work out right away. Okay, so where else have the Giants added? They haven't. In fact, they've subtracted by losing Mitch Haniger in the trade to the Seattle Mariners. And I'm not going to say that Mitch Haniger was going to be a net positive for the lineup in 2024, coming off an injury. I think his career trajectory was not headed in the right direction. Probably for the best, the Giants traded him and DeSclafani for a pitcher who might be able to offer them something in Robbie Ray. But again, that's not a move that makes the Giants better come April 1st, 2024, May 1st, 2024. So there is plenty of work to do. And I feel as though the Giants have been a little too stubborn this offseason. It was all in on Yamamoto. And then they missed. Can they pivot? Will they pivot? Are they willing to say, hey, we may have missed out on the best pitcher available. We're going to look at the second, third, and fourth best pitchers available. We're going to look at the fifth, sixth, and seventh best pitchers available, and we are going to evaluate them and see how they can fill out our roster. Or are they going to look at someone who's way further down on the list of free agents and say, if we give him a 1-year deal with an option, like they did for Stripling, like they did for Manaea, he can take down some innings. Because doing that doesn't make the Giants appreciably better in 2024 than they were in 2023. You're just rearranging the chairs on the deck. Sean Manaea heads to the Mets. You just get the next Sean Manaea. By the way, he was pretty good during the second half of the season. So replacing his productivity is easier said than done. I think that the challenge for this Giants organization right now is to make bolder, more impressive moves that upgrade the top of this roster. And how that gets done, well, time is starting to run out. Free agents are signing, and there are still players out there. But the Giants have to be willing to potentially sacrifice a draft pick, to potentially give up prospects in trades, to make moves that they haven't made before in the Farhan Zaidi era, to be bold, to be aggressive, and to prove to fans that they want to win again. Because I don't think that you can look out and say, Jung Hoo Lee, Robbie Ray, and Tom Murphy is a satisfactory offseason. And I hope the Giants won't try to sell fans on that being a satisfactory offseason. Because Robbie Ray is coming back from Tommy John surgery. He might make, 12, 13 starts? And those starts, total question mark for the Giants right now. Tom Murphy, backup catcher. Patrick Bailey's playing the majority of the starts this year behind the plate. So there's still plenty of work to do. Are the Giants willing to be bold with that work? Are the Giants willing to be aggressive with that work? And are the Giants willing to spend money, potentially give up prospects, to make themselves demonstrably better in 2024 than they were going into 2022 and 2023? Because if not, it'll be a third consecutive disappointing season, a third season in which they miss the playoffs, and another year in which Giants fans are left to wonder, is this organization serious about winning? It's not a question that anyone wants to ask. It's not a question that fans should ever have to ask. But as long as these trends continue, as long as the Giants go without making bigger and bolder moves, it's a fair one to ask. Thanks for watching today's episode of the Kerry Crowley Show. Back with more later on this week. We'll probably do a Friday episode, try to get something in the podcast feed. And Thursday evening, I'm on KMBR hosting the Giants Hot Stove League show. Looking forward to those conversations. We'll do a bunch of 2024 predictions, what the Giants must do from here, all of that and more. You're listening to the Kerry Crowley Show. Thanks so much for tuning in.